So here we have episode 3 of Tucker Carlson on Twitter, or Tucker on Twitter as this show's called. His shows are so hilarious. It's just him going absolutely nuts now that he doesn't really have uh Fox News to like limit what he says, and Elon Musk is just letting him say whatever.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. The Biden administration arrested Donald Trump this afternoon. They had him arraigned and fingerprinted in a Miami courthouse like the accused felon he now technically is.
Yeah, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Isn't that like a famous right-wing motto?
These were the first steps in a process that is designed to put Donald Trump behind bars for the rest of his life. Cable news carried every moment of it live. It's unprecedented, they told us, with what looked like shock. But they
Yeah, because this is like actually the first time a president has been charged for something like this. So yeah, it is unprecedented.
weren't shocked. They knew this was coming. Everyone who's paid attention knew it was. What just happened was always going to happen. It's
What happened was always going to happen, yet everybody knew that Trump was always going to steal documents.
been inevitable since February 16th, 2016. That's the day Donald Trump made a blood enemy of the largest and most powerful organization in human history, which would be the federal government.
Right. So Tucker is saying that since Trump became president, he became the enemy of the federal government. Whatever.
Despite what you may remember, it wasn't anything that Trump had said about immigration or trade with China or rapists from Mexico. Those are the stories that dominated the headlines that year. Trump's a racist, they scream. Stop him. But inside Washington,
Yeah, Trump is a racist. Him and his dad got convicted by the federal government for housing and discrimination against black people.
that was just noise. None of it really rated. Identity politics doesn't mean much to permanent Washington. What matters, then and now, is foreign policy. The invasions and occupations and proxy wars, the decisions that determine which global populations will thrive and which will die, the policies that come with trillion-dollar price tags, the ones that over time have made the counties around D.C. the richest suburbs in the world.
This is funny how a right-wing war hawk is complaining about the United States getting wealthy off of wars, because that's how the United States likes to get wealth.
In Washington, that's what actually matters. And it's obvious when you look carefully. When there's a debate about anything else, for example, the debt ceiling, both sides take their assigned positions and they start yelling. But when Congress decides to start a war, no matter how foolish or counterproductive or obviously disconnected from America's core interests that war may be, when that happens, the leaders of both parties automatically jump behind it like circus clowns.
It's pretty funny how he's now complaining about both sides being war hawks when he's never been against any war whatsoever.
And then they stay there, sometimes for decades. They defend that war relentlessly against all evidence until somebody finally rings the all clear bell and they can begin to admit that actually, maybe it wasn't such a great idea. We meant well, but it just didn't work out.
So, how does this have to do with Trump becoming an enemy of the government?
Good news is we've learned a lot of important lessons. In the end, they usually do say something like that, but only after emotions have cooled and the damning details have begun to fade from collective memory. It's an apology that's not actually an apology, much less repentance, and it's years too late to matter in any case. But until then, that's all you're getting. Until then, no dissent is allowed. That's the first rule of Washington.
Right, because we don't have dissent whatsoever. Nobody ever says a different opinion, ever.
But somehow Trump didn't bother to follow it. He is from out of town, so maybe he didn't know it was a rule, or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, 7.5 years later, we can point to the precise moment that permanent Washington decided to send Donald Trump to prison. Here it is. It's from the Republican candidates debate in Greenville, South Carolina.
We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East. They lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right.
Somehow, this is what Tucker Carlson believes that made Trump an enemy of the government because he said we shouldn't have been in Iraq, which is something a lot of people have said, and they didn't go to jail for stealing documents.
We should never have been in Iraq, Trump said. We destabilized the Middle East. Now, by the time Trump said that, a lot of Republican primary voters were starting to reach the same conclusion. How could they?
This is just funny, though. He's trying to connect what Trump said years ago to him being arrested for stealing documents, which have no connection whatsoever.
Not. But it was the next line that doomed Trump to today's arrest. They lied, he said. There were no weapons of mass destruction, and they knew there were none. Now, when he said that, a few in the crowd booed. Most just sat there in silence, stunned. Can he say that? Well, he said it.
It's something lots of people have said before. He's acting like Trump was like the first person to say that there were no weapons of mass destruction and that the invasion was illegal.
Anyway. And by saying that, he sealed his fate. That was the one thing you were not allowed to say because it implicated too many people on both sides, which on this topic is really just one side.
It's funny because people on the left have been talking about how the war was illegal for the longest of times and that, Bush was a war criminal and should be arrested. Yet Tucker Carlson never said anything about that.
Hillary Clinton was guilty of it, but so was Paul Ryan. All of them were guilty. They all knew, they all lied. And to a person, they hated Donald Trump for exposing them. After that, it was pretty clear that even if he did get elected president...
Oh, wow. Tucker Carlson has become so crazy, and it's kind of hilarious because none of this is real. It's just what he's making up in his head. And funny enough, there's going to be a ton of his followers that are going to instantly believe it as well.
Trump was going to have a very hard time controlling the federal government he was supposed to be in charge of. Most of permanent Washington decided that thwarting Trump was the single most important mission.
Also, the president isn't in control of the entire government. They're in control of one branch of the government, while two other branches are controlled separately so that one person doesn't have total control over the entire government.
In their lives. Everything depended on it. Many of them said so publicly, but others didn't say so publicly. In fact, the stealthier ones took another path. They ran toward Trump, not away from him. They sucked up to him. They ingratiated themselves with the man they intuitively understood was susceptible to flattery, which Trump is. And they did this in order...
Yeah, because Trump only cares about his own ego, which is why you could say anything flattering to him, and he would give you whatever position of power you were looking for.
To subvert his new administration from the inside. There were a number of these, and you could spot them immediately. They were flatterers. Invariably, the ones who flattered Trump the most hated him the most and disagreed the most strongly with his views. You saw that.
Yeah, comes the guy that flattered Trump a lot through his TV show, knowing that Trump watched his show and stuff. It is hilarious because publicly, when Tucker was on Fox News, he spoke highly about Trump, especially during his presidency. And then privately, come to find out, Tucker Carlson thought Trump was, a bad person. This is just hilarious.
Them in the hallways of the White House and at press conferences. They were there slobbering over their boss with elaborate self-abasement, as if they were addressing a monarch or a god. It was a scene from the Ottoman court. It was filthy and decadent, and it was false. Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, Lindsey Graham in the Congress. They all called Trump a visionary genius up until the moment he lost power. And then they unsheathed their real agenda, as always.
This is just so hilarious now that he's attacking other right-wingers. Normally, right-wingers will never attack another right-winger as much as they can try to keep themselves from needing to, because, Right wingers always want to try to, keep the power within their group.
Always the neocon war agenda, and they piled on with maximum force. Here's Mike Pompeo, for example, on Fox News this morning.
President Trump had classified documents where he shouldn't have had them, and then when given the opportunity to return them, he chose not to do that for whatever reason. When somebody identifies that, you got to turn them in. And so that's inconsistent with protecting America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. And if the allegations are true, some of these were pretty serious, important documents. And so that's wrong.
Hilarious. I just love how right wingers are so upset over Trump being charged for committing crimes while they all scream about being the party of law and order. And, I mean, isn't that what Trump screamed about all the time? That we're a nation of law and order? You know, don't, cross the border illegally if you don't want to be, treated as a criminal. Well, in this case, don't steal documents from the government if you don't want to be treated as a criminal.
May future historians hoping to unlock the mysteries of late Empire Washington study that clip because it will reveal everything. That very same Mike Pompeo, the one who's sneering at Donald Trump on TV this morning, that guy served Donald Trump as both CIA director and as Secretary of State.
Okay. Yeah. Just because he, served for Trump doesn't mean the guy has to kiss up to Trump like all the time, no matter what Trump does. The guy is in favor of, law and order, it seems like.
Was the two most powerful jobs in the federal government. And as he worked in those jobs, Pompeo promised, in fact, he swore to support the president's agenda. Why? Because that's the way a democracy works. You vote for a candidate in the belief that his appointees will carry out the policies that you voted for.
Well, also the branches that or the groups that the president does have say over or influence over. I mean, yeah, they do kind of gotta support the president somewhat. I mean, they do gotta listen to his orders and stuff. But if the president commits crimes during or after their presidency, they don't have to continue to support them and stuff.
It's not about the president, it's about you, the voter. But Pompeo didn't do that. He didn't even try to do that. In fact, he undermined Trump's often stated commitment to peace and non-intervention abroad at every turn. His every waking hour was devoted to fomenting war in some faraway foreign country or other. Iran, Syria, Russia, North Korea, the list goes on. But rather than telling...
This is so right-wing Tucker Carlson hates that a right-winger wanted war in other nations. That's pretty funny.
Trump that he disagreed with his ideas, as a man would, Pompeo toadied up to Trump, a man he despised, in the oiliest, most over-the-top way imaginable. Ask anyone who worked in that White House at the time. Who is the appointee most likely to tell Donald Trump on a daily basis that he was handling?
I want to point out that I thought this was going to be all about the Biden administration being corrupt against Tucker, but not Tucker, but, Trump. But it's been all about how bad the Republicans are, and this is just pretty funny.
Handsome, virile, sleek, and powerful. Mike Pompeo. That will be the consensus answer. Those of us who saw firsthand Pompeo's relentless kowtowing will never forget it. It was indelibly repulsive. No one with self-respect could do something like that, but Mike Pompeo did it effortlessly, with relish and verve. Now, this same person is telling Fox News viewers that he fears for the safety of our military, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, in the approved phrase.
Yeah, because when classified documents gets leaked, it can cause problems for the military. That's why that's why the airman who was leaking classified documents got arrested. I mean, it's not like Trump is the only person to get arrested for leaking or stealing classified documents.
Because Donald Trump took some classified documents home and didn't immediately return them to the National Archives?
Well, not just that he didn't immediately return them, it's that he tried to have them destroyed when they were requested to be returned. He hid a bunch of them when investigators were coming to get uh, the classified documents that he took. So it's not just uh, he had classified documents that he didn't know he shouldn't have. It's that he knew he had these documents, knew he shouldn't have them, and tried to hide them.
What a lie that is. Mike Pompeo knows that's a lie. He spent his entire life in Washington. Washington is a city where internal memos about Labor Day are classified because everything is classified. Your government has classified more than 1 billion federal documents, most of them boring and pointless and a danger to no one, and locked them away in secret where you can't see them because you may be an American citizen, but not really, and therefore you don't have the necessary clearances.
Okay, so now he's mad that the government is classifying mundane memos and stuff. That's kind of funny.
To know what's going on. And by the way, none of this is done in order to make America safer, any more than COVID restrictions were designed to keep you healthy. No.
Yeah, he had to bring up COVID. That's funny.
It's a caste system. That's the point. And you're the untouchable in this hierarchy. Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, right wingers are the untouchable in this situation. That is so hilarious. Right. If they were considered the untouchables, if we want to use that phrase, they would be the poorest of the poor. You would not see any right winger in politics or with any good job whatsoever, because in the Hindu caste system, the untouchables are given the lowest of the lowest jobs and are treated like shit, basically, and they're unable to move up in society whatsoever.
Knows that. Everybody who works in Washington knows that. How many secret documents do you think Dick Cheney took home with him while he was running the Iraq War? How many did his wife read? She never had a clearance.
Okay, okay. If Tucker Carlson truly believes that Dick Cheney and his wife has their hands on documents that they shouldn't have, he should actually bring this up to a court and stuff and see if they can have him arrested. Where all he has to do is bring his evidence that they do have stolen documents, and boom, he can have them arrested. But all he's going to do is make a big lie.
We'll never know the answer because there is no chance Dick Cheney will ever be investigated or his staffers will be told to wear wires in his presence. He will never be indicted for this. Of course not. Dick Cheney is a neocon. Donald Trump is not. Dick Cheney supports war with Russia. Trump does not. That's the difference. The rest is just a distraction. The prosecution of Donald Trump is transparently political. He's literally Joe Biden's main political opponent. He's polling over 60% among Republican voters right now. So Joe Biden is doing what no president has ever dared to do. He's using law enforcement to lock up his chief rival. That's happening.
I love how right wingers are trying to act like Biden is attacking his political opponent, when the fact of the matter is Trump committed a bunch of crimes and now he's being punished for it. And right wingers hate the idea of their God figure being punished for crimes, just like they hate when really any right winger actually gets punished for crimes.
Happening right now. Anyone who denies it's happening is lying to you. But actually, it's worse than that. Trump's prosecution isn't just political, it's ideological. Nobody with Trump's views is allowed to have power in this country. Criticize our wars.
Right, which is why a lot of people with Trump's views has power. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nikki Haley, uh, various other Republicans with the same views as Trump has power. So this is obviously a lie.
And you're disqualified. If you keep it up, we'll send you to prison. That's the message Washington is sending. Not just the Democratic Party is sending, but both parties are sending. Like so many Republicans, for example, the supposedly conservative governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, spent yesterday totally ignoring the destruction of the American justice system. Instead, he signed a highly important bill called the Crown Act, which, according to the celebratory tweet Abbott sent commemorating it, will, quote, prohibit discrimination based on textures and hairstyles historically associated with race. In other words,
Oh, nice, really. Did Greg Abbott actually pass that bill? Because it's not something I seen. I'm surprised if he actually did, being how racist Greg Abbott is. Hey, but it's good that we can uh, remove the discrimination of African American hairstyles, at least in another location.
in Texas, cornrows are now protected by law. Having unapproved views about Ukraine is not.
Yeah, it actually is, which is hilarious. It's not like if you say, hey, uh, Putin should be able to invade Ukraine and kill as many people as he wants, you're gonna go to jail for it. This is pretty hilarious. Uh, Tucker honestly acts like there's no freedom of speech for right wingers just because Trump is being arrested for stealing documents. Though I wonder why Tucker Carlson hasn't moved to Russia already. I mean, they are offering him a spot to be on one of their national news shows. He could probably make a lot of rubles over there, and he'll be able to worship Putin from closer than being in America. I still find it funny that all these right-wing Putin supporters also haven't moved to Russia and helped Putin in their fight against the Ukrainian people. You know, if these right-wingers truly believe that Putin is right, join their military.
That's fine with most elected Republicans. They find Trump tiresome and embarrassing. Their donors hate him. They will not be sad if he dies in jail. But what about voters? What are they learning from this spectacle? Well, mostly they're learning that they have no power at all because nobody cares about them. But they already knew that. Unlike so many of our elected leaders, they have been to America recently. They know what it looks like. Have you seen it? If you've got a few days this summer, find out. Take a road trip and see for yourself. Drive 500 miles in any direction and then come home. How are things looking? Well, they should look great. The federal government spent $6.5 trillion last year. That's more than any government has ever spent, ever. So at the very least, you would expect pristine public roads. Oh no, that's not what you see when you drive around this country. There are potholes and Jersey barriers everywhere.
Uh, well, state roads and the state roads and the interstates and stuff is that's all dealt with by the states. If you know their roads and stuff are bad, it's because of like the city or the state itself isn't putting funds towards it. I mean, the federal government I think just deals with the highways, and you know the highways are pretty good.
Looks like Tegucigalpa before the Chinese decided to rebuild the infrastructure of Honduras. We don't have China buying our roads, so they're falling apart. You'd think the people you would pass on your road trip would look happy.
That was funny. We don't have China buying our roads, so they're falling apart. It does that mean he wants China to like take over the United States because they would do better?
And prosperous. Again, this is a very rich country. But a lot of them don't. Quite a few appear to be strung out on drugs. You see them shuffling by shuttered storefronts in small towns. And you wonder, as you see all of this, where did all the money go? It's certainly not here. Well, it's in Washington. It's in Fairfax and Loudoun counties, and in leafy, perfectly manicured Northwest D.C.
Is Tucker Carlson now complaining about income disparity? Because this is hilarious. He honestly doesn't care, like, that there is a bunch of poor people in the United States. This dude has never cared about poor people. He is the heir to the Swanson fortune, and all he cares about is his money.
And of course, a huge chunk of it went to Ukraine, to Zelensky and his friends. Not because you voted.
What went to the Ukrainian military was excess military equipment and stuff. Cash was not given.
For that. You didn't vote to give it to them. You never would. But because Joe
Yeah, nobody votes on what the military does. Though Tucker Carlson has never had an issue with that before. It's hilarious how, oh, people didn't vote if we were to support the Ukrainian people or not. Oh, this is now somehow bad. But look at all the other hundreds of wars that the United States has been into, and Tucker Carlson has never once brought up, the American people never supported this war or voted for it. Why should we be in it? It's just hilarious how he's now against war because it's his friend Putin being fought against instead of supported by the United States.
Joe Biden and his many allies, from Chuck Schumer to Mitch McConnell to Paul Ryan, and every single news anchor on all of television, all of them believe that Ukraine, its borders, its future, its infrastructure are all more important than the town that you live in. They sincerely think that, and it's obvious. Everyone in power thinks that, except for Donald Trump. Whatever else you say about him, Trump is the one guy with an actual shot at becoming president who dissents from Washington's long-standing pointless war agenda.
Whatever. This is just a lie. Okay, Trump was against one war, so that means he's against all wars of the United States? Nah. Trump has had no issue sending drones into various battle zones to be used and stuff. He authorized a lot of drone strikes, so Trump isn't against war.
And for that one fact, they're trying to take Trump out before you can vote for him. And that should upset you more than anything that's happened in American politics in your lifetime. Even if you don't plan to vote for Donald Trump, even if you would die before voting for Donald Trump, which is your right, and a lot of good people feel that way, even still, the destruction of our democracy, which is the right of voters to support any candidate they want, even candidates who don't want war with Russia, the destruction of that should keep you up at night. Yes, Donald Trump is a flawed man, but his sins are minor compared to those of his persecutors. In this life, we don't get to choose our martyrs. We can only choose our principles, and America's are at stake.
Tucker Carlson going crazier and crazier. This is pretty hilarious. I can't wait for episode 4.